A newly released email appears to indicate hundreds of law enforcement officials were warned about potential violence 2 days before the January 6th insurrection. The watchdog group Property for the People posted an email that was sent by an organization that helps keep various law enforcement agencies informed of threats. The email references a conference call where hundreds of officials were briefed on the potential for violence to occur on that day by protesters attempting to interrupt the certification of Joe Biden's election victory. Capitol Police and FBI officials have publicly downplayed intelligence of a possible threat in testimony following the incident. Evacuation flights from Afghanistan have resumed for Westerners, including a second flight that took off today. But thousands of at-risk Afghans who have helped the United States are still stranded in their homeland. Some are rushing for the border, trying to cross into neighboring Pakistan overland. Molly Hunter explains.
The first international flight taking off from the Taliban-run Kabul airport, Americans on board a U.S.-facilitated evacuation plane to Doha, Qatar. The first since U.S. troops left, and a far cry from the chaotic runway scenes 2 weeks ago. The State Department said they invited more than 30 American citizens and permanent residents, but not everyone took up the offer. There will be more flights, but the NSC says due to an ongoing terror threat, no details in advance. On board, 113 people, and alongside Americans, Canadians, Brits, Ukrainians, and Germans. NBC's Raf Sanchez was there.
This is it. After a perilous journey that started in Kabul through an airport controlled by the Taliban, these passengers are coming down the steps here in Doha, finally to safety and security.
But for those so desperate in the last 2 weeks, overland has been the only way out. We headed up Pakistan's Khyber Pass to the Torkham border crossing with Afghanistan. This new Taliban guard we spoke with says Pakistan isn't letting all these people through.
There are people waiting who can't get over?
Please, no talking.
Okay, so the Pakistani military is having us move back.
But sisters Mursal and Manisha made it.
If you had stayed under Taliban rule, what would that have been like?
The big problem was that the girls was not allowed to go to school. There was not educational place for.
They're headed to Ottawa, soon to be Canada's newest refugees.
Around 158 passengers were on board the second flight out of Kabul today, including more American citizens. Meanwhile, the Defense Department is planning to evaluate how the military screens and tracks Afghan evacuees later this month. They're looking at the biometric screening and the tracking of evacuees who have been enrolled in DOT databases. There are currently more than 40,000 at-risk Afghans living on 8 U.S. military bases. That number is expected to grow as more finish their initial screenings overseas and are brought to the United States. Up next on Valley News Live, how much more you'll have to pay if you don't wear a mask on public transportation.